Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jacob Knight, and today I thought I would talk about my top 5 best and worst of DC's crossover, which I had so much fun. The thing about these crossovers is that they really are for the fans. They're very self-aware and they're very understanding of how ridiculous and epic comics can really be. So I really appreciate that. So let's just move on. I'm going to start with what I think was the best, move on to the worst, and then go on to 3 things I think I could work on. First of all, and forgive me, I'm gonna be looking down at my notes. First on the best list is the Trinity, the DC Trinity: Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow. They're my kids. I love them so much. They were so much fun. Although Melissa Benoist didn't have as much to work with here, she was kind of just herself. But watching Steven and Grant just switch roles and how well they did on it was really great. It's funny because the Flash is very much a character who's always kind of known who he was, and Arrow's always combating with who he is as a person and as a symbol, and so it was interesting him just trying to be happy. Like, he's like, this guy is afraid to be happy because he knows that the moment he's happy, some sword-wielding assassin is going to show up and stab him or something. So it was really great to watch them both act and really try to flesh out what these characters mean and how they respond to each other, and lots of little moments where they're just like, oh, well, you better smile. Maybe you look better if you smile. And he said, well, you gotta harness that fierceness. So I really enjoyed that part. Second greatest is the Easter eggs. There are so many amazing Easter eggs here. When they played the Smallville theme, when they went to Earth 37 or whatever to go visit Kara and Lois and Clark, it was so good. It was so, I literally got up and started yelling because I was so excited, because I grew up watching Smallville. The fact that they played the theme when they went to go visit the farm, I couldn't handle it. And there were lots of little details poured throughout this entirety of the crossover that you could freeze frame so many different movements and just look at what was there. And I really like that. Third of all, concept. The entire idea of this crossover was really interesting. On regards to whether or not they fully pulled it off and conceptualized it on screen is up for debate, but I think the idea behind it was really great. Fourth, design. I really enjoyed the design of Gotham, of costumes, of how they look in their different costumes, and Gotham City, and designs of characters when reality was warped, etc., etc. And fifth, I really enjoyed the self-awareness. Just to reiterate my intro, these shows are really self-aware and they know who their audience is, so they can do so many fun things. Like at the end where Kara was just like, oh, well, this is, Kara is just like, this is going to happen every year, isn't it? And then Grant is just like, I guess so. And that was so funny. I don't know if you guys stayed to watch Legends, but they did the same thing where they're like, oh yeah, they did their crossover, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it was so funny and I enjoyed it so much. To my worst list, I'm going to try to breeze through these because these have kind of been consistent throughout not only the crossovers but the shows. My first worst is action sequence. These were somewhat lacking, and it was a little disappointing, honestly, because they've had great action sequences. And when you have supers involved in a story, you always find a way to show them off as best you can, but they were really whelmed this crossover, so that was a little disappointing. So loss of quality. The first episode, the Flash episode, I believe, was the best one, I think, out of all 3, and they got slightly worse as it progressed, simply because it kept getting messier, and I feel like there was a loss of focus, which goes into my fourth worst thing, is that it keeps highlighting different things, and it's not as cohesive as it could be. So as the story progressed, it just got messier and messier until it was clear by the last episode that everyone was tired, that the story was tired, and that we just needed to wrap this up. And even though they did, and it was fine, it felt really messy, and that was a shame. My final on the worst list is teased. We were teased with a lot of different things, characters acting. There was a lot of missed opportunities here, I feel, that kind of brought the overall quality down that I would have liked to see. Like, for instance, where I think the whole thing should have taken place in Gotham. Why return to Central City? maybe Superman, I like the idea that his idea of Superman is here, but I would have liked to see a lot of different directions taken with different characters. You know, you see like Evil Cisco, it has no weight to it because we barely spent any time with Evil Cisco. And I mean, I don't know. It's just some things were just thrown by, and it just adds to the messiness. And this kind of leads into my three. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. To my three things to work on. First one is Batwoman. She was cool. She was cool. But I really can't comment on it because we barely saw any. She was in. How long is this crossover? Like 40 on. Like two, maybe almost 2 hours is this crossover, and she was in like 15 minutes of it. So I would have definitely liked to see it more. I mean, when you see her walk up and pull up to the bat suit, that is iconic as heck. But I really would have liked to see her and more of her, because if this is supposed to be like a test run to see how fans respond, she should have been at least the last 2 episodes. I get you give the first episode so that these characters have a space to get used to the new rules and kind of have a different way of understanding each other. But then the other 2 episodes, you need to have Batwoman in there. And you let fans see her and you have her do a lot of cool stuff. And she did some nice things here, but she didn't do a lot. She really didn't do anything, honestly. She did a couple things, but Kate Kane and Batwoman should have had more screen time, and they should have stayed in Gotham instead of going back to Central City. Second thing I would have changed is the villain, John Deegan, the professor. I thought he was cool. The acting was fine, but I had an idea. The night we were watching it, I was telling my friend, I would have liked if John Negan, as a eugenics professor or whatever, if he had like a superhero complex, and if he was really into them, and if he was just like almost hero worship. And then when he becomes a Superman, he's just like, this is what Superman does. He kills people, he does whatever he wants, blah, blah, blah. And I think it would have been great if they set him up as like a representative of toxic fandom, where fans just take what they want and they don't listen to anyone and they just ruin it for everyone else. And I think he could have totally been a representative of toxic fandom and just been like, well, I'm Superman, I'm going to kill. And then Supergirl shows up and says, no, it's not about his powers, it's about his heart, you dummy. And then Supergirl would have just knocked him out, you know? So then I think it would have been the show checking its own fans. And we all need to be checked. The shows need to be checked, we need to be checked. Everybody needs to keep each other in line because sometimes things get crazy. So I really would have liked if they did that on the villain and maybe had more about him, because he was just nothing. He was fine. And third, to work on focus. I feel like there was. I've kind of said this throughout the entirety of this discussion, but I feel like there's a lack of focus on certain characters. There are times where it's great and everything's in line and it's flowing smooth, and other times it's just all over the place and you see one person doing another thing, and it's hard to keep focus, and you need to have a more cohesive story. And I think that's one of the reasons they didn't have the Legends team on, just because there's just too many things going on and you need to stick to it. And I get they have a lot of bases to cover, but see, if they had stayed in Gotham, they probably wouldn't have had to cover so much. But that's beyond the point. So even though there's a lot of problems with the writing, etc., and there's lots of great things with callbacks, and I could do a whole thing on the writing of CW and how it's the best and the worst at the same time. But the most important thing is that I had fun. That's what these CW shows do for me. I have a lot of fun. I sit down, I get to laugh, I get to smile, I get to geek out, and that's the best part of these shows, is that I get to have fun. So what do you think of the crossover below? Make sure you let me know. And, you know, if people like this video, I'll give you what I think the Batwoman show should be. I'm literally writing a script for script writing practice, and I think it'll be cool. Like, there are so many different directions you could go with Batwoman, and I feel like people are not realizing this. Okay, so thank you for watching. This has been Jacob Knight, and have a fantastic day.